Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're making a light up Christmas tree ornament. Now when I say a light up Christmas tree ornament, I don't mean an ornament that goes on your Christmas tree that lights up. I mean a tabletop ornament that looks like a Christmas tree and that lights up. Guys, this is a fantastic scrap wood project. And that is what we're going to use pretty much for the whole thing. So let's head over to the bench and start it off with some of the scrap that I've chosen for this project. Well, I have a little bit of scrap walnut, and this was from some project, I don't know, maybe from our tractor project, I'm not sure. But we do have this whole section down here of walnut, and that is what I'm interested in. So I'm going to take this over to the table saw, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this into the largest blank that I can get out of it. So out of that scrap of walnut, I was able to cut a blank that is 1 9/16 of an inch wide, and it was much longer, but I cut it down to be 4.5 inches long. I also have a couple pieces here that are 5/32 inch thick. Again, this is scrap. I cut it to the exact same dimensions, 1 9/16 of an inch wide and 4.5 inches long. So now we want to do just a little bit of layout here on this piece. And what I'm going to do is from each edge, I'm going to come in 7/64 of an inch. Just like that. And same thing on the other side. 7/64 right there. And then from each edge or each end, I'm going to come in 1/4 inch. And we'll draw a line. And we'll do the same thing on this side. Now, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a blade entry hole, and I'm going to take this over to the scroll saw, and I'm going to cut out the center of this piece of wood. And what you end up with is this. So what we're going to do is on one side of our little frame, I guess we'll call this, we are going to take one of our pieces of 5/32 thick walnut, and we are going to glue it to the front, and that is actually going to form a little box. Well, our box is not completely dry, but it's dry enough to carry on to the next step. And what I want to do at this point is in these 1/4 inch sides, in the corners, in all 4 corners, somewhere there, it doesn't matter where, I want to drill a 1/8 inch diameter by 1/8 inch deep hole. 4 of them, 1 in each corner. Okay, and with those holes drilled, we're going to use a little bit of Gorilla Glue super glue gel. We're going to put 1 drop on a 1/8 by 1/8 inch rare earth magnet, and we're going to push that magnet down into that hole. And we're going to do that for all 4 of the holes that we just drilled. Well, what I've done is taken 4 1-inch common nails with a half decently sized head on them, and I have cut the heads off and placed them where our 1/8 inch magnets are. Guys, from here we're going to take our other piece of walnut that we cut. We're going to align our sides of our box just like this so that the ends line up and the bottom lines up. And we're just going to give it a gentle push like this. And that is going to leave impressions here to show us where to drill our holes. And all we're going to do, guys, is we're going to measure the size of the heads on these nails, and we will drill a very shallow hole where our marks show us that we just made here. And with that done in each one of these holes, we're going to put 1 drop again of this gel CA. We're going to place our nail head in that hole, and then we'll gently tap it in place. There we go. So we're going to glue all 4 of those nail heads in to our lid. And what you end up with is a magnetic lid, just like that. So with your lid in place, I'm going to use a sheet of sandpaper glued onto a 3/4 inch thick piece of MDF, and I'm going to give this a good sanding all over. So what I've done now is I've taken some 3/4 inch scrap pine that we used on other projects, and I have ripped it to be a width of 1¼ inches. Now guys, what I want to do here is I want to cut each one of these sides on an angle of 25 degrees, but I want to cut it so that our longest point, from tip to tip on the longest point, is going to measure 6½ inches, let's say. Let's try that and see how that works out. Well, I changed my mind on the angle because after trying it, I didn't really like it. And besides, it's my show, so if I want to change the angle, I can. So what I've done is I've changed this to 20 degrees, and I've made from the longest point to the longest point is actually 6 5/16. And that will eventually get mounted here on our walnut base. Now guys, I've taken some more scrap pine, again 1¼ inch wide, and I have mitered the edges here to that same 20-degree angle so that they will sit like this and it will sit flush. So now I just have to cut them to length, and I have placed a mark on here where I want to cut this one, and I've measured it, and that is actually a 50-degree angle. So we're going to cut this piece first at the mark there that I have, and then I'll show you what we've got. So there we go, that's that piece, and then all you need to do is mark, just like I've done here at this top corner on the outside edge. That is the same angle as this. It's a 50-degree angle, and we're just going to trim this off. Now if you want to get fancy here and split your angles and have them meet in that perfect miter at the top, you can do that. Guys, this is a Christmas craft. This is not fine furniture, so keep in mind what it is. Let's get that 50-degree cut here marked, and I'll show you what we end up with. So there we go. There is our Christmas tree shape. All right, so guys, at this point in time, what I'm going to do is I am going to glue this, and I'm going to use some pin nails. We're going to pin this together, glue it up, and let it set up. Well, while we're waiting for our tree to dry up, we can turn our attention back to our box. Now, this box is meant to house this battery compartment, and this battery compartment controls these fairy lights that we will be installing in the tree afterwards. I don't know how well they're showing up on camera, but they're multicolored. So what we want to do is I want to sit this controller into our base here, and what I want is to mark where we need to drill a hole for our wires to come out of this control box. So I'm just looking at it here, and I think somewhere around here in the middle will be just fine. So we're just going to place a rough mark, and I'm going to drill a 1/4 inch hole there, giving us plenty of room to maneuver our wire through that hole. So with our base dry and sanded, we want to align our base with the bottom of our tree here and center it. We just get a ruler here, make sure that we're centered. And once you're happy with the centering, we are going to take a pencil and mark where we drilled that hole. Now, this is where it might get a little bit tricky. Because what we're going to do is we're going to drill right here where we just marked that hole. We're going to drill a 1/4 inch hole only about 2/3 of the way into our tree frame. We don't want to break through. Then we're going to flip it over, and right in the middle, lined up with that 1/4 inch hole, we're going to drill a hole down through the back of our tree at the base until the two holes meet up. Well, that bit liked to grab the pine and I almost blew right through. That was close. I saved it right at the last second. But essentially what we have now is a hole that goes in here and then carries on out the back of our project. So for that, we can line up our holes here just like that. And what we can do is raise our box up above. Your magnetic panel is the back of your box here. So we're going to raise it just slightly above the front of our tree so it's a little bit recessed here like that. We're going to center it and glue it in place. The Christmas tree is all dried up and this is what we end up with. This is the back with our removable cover. I kind of messed up a little bit with my alignment that I wanted this to be flush with the back, but it's actually a little recessed and it's flush on the front. That is not what I had intended. I intended for this battery compartment to be recessed a little for the trunk, but it didn't work out that way. But either way, it still looks great. I'm not concerned. Guys, I don't like this pine here. So I'm going to do something that you rarely see me do on the show. And what I'm going to do is I've got some of this Sedona red wood stain. And I want to stain the pine a Sedona red. I'm going to try not to get some on the walnut, but if I do, I do. I'm not too concerned. So let's get this entire pine tree frame stained up. Well, as much as I really don't like painting or staining wood, I have to admit that that Sedona red over the pine just looks great. It's got a really nice, rich color to it, and I really like it. So I did slip up a little bit when I was applying the stain and slap some in here, but that's on the inside of the battery compartment, so I'm not too concerned. So now we're going to turn our attention to the back of our Christmas tree frame. And what I want to do is I have a bunch of these brass eustachian pins. And what I want to do is I want to place them around our frame, roughly in the center of the 3/4 inch pine, but I don't want to hammer them all the way home. I want to have them protruding just a little bit. And you'll see why in just a minute. So these eustachian pins are 3/8 of an inch long. If you don't have eustachian pins, don't worry about it. You can just use nails and that will work just fine. So I'm just going to hammer these in just randomly around here. You really don't need a lot, but you know, spread them out as best you can. Well, just a little tip for putting in nails or eustachian pins that are this small. I have this little device here. I can't remember where I got it. I think it was something like 50 cents at some woodworking supplier. And this is what it's meant for, holding small nails so you can get them started so you're not whacking your fingers. But you can use a pair of tweezers. You can use a pair of needle nose pliers. Anything like that to get your fingers away from the head of the nail. But if you have one of these, it's a great help here. All right, so what I have is I've used 4 on each side and 2 at the bottom. It's not specific, guys. If I need more, I'm going to add more. If I need less, I'm going to add less. So this next part here might be a little tricky. I'm just going to find the end of my colored fairy lights here. That might be the trickiest part. Where the heck is the end? There it is. Okay, so what we want to do, you want to be careful too because this wire is fragile, but what we're going to do is I'm going to try my best to put the wire inside this hole of the battery compartment, and I want to bring it up through the hole that we drilled in our tree frame. Now, if you do a little bend and then kind of twist it up, a little bend and twist it up, a little bend and twist it up, you'll see that it comes out half decently. And now just gently feed it in, and you want to pull it all the way through until there are no more fairy lights inside this compartment. And I've stopped it there just at the lead-in wire, and from here you can place your battery pack inside of your compartment, and this excess lead-in wire, we can just coil this up and place it inside here, just like that, and then our magnetic cover holds it all in place. Now, this is the easy part. We just want to randomly wrap this around our Eustachian pins. Now, I was going to go around a couple times, but I think that would place too much stress on the actual wire. So we're just going to choose random nails here, or Eustachian pins, depending on what you've used. And you can see at that point, I chose or tried to choose different nails because this one light would have been hidden behind the pine, and I'm trying to avoid that. So we're just trying to wrap all of our lights around the Eustachian pins so that it kind of decorates the tree. I know it's not perfectly decorated by any means, but you get the idea. I think I'd like another Eustachian pin down here in the bottom to give me something there to mount it to. So let me add another Eustachian pin here, and then I can finish wrapping it around. And when I got to the end, I added another pin, and I went around twice, and we can just take the end and we can tuck it in anywhere here that we see fit. Now guys, if you want at this point, I probably will, I'm going to tap down these Eustachian pins the rest of the way just to help to hold these wires in place. We're not going to hammer them all the way home. You can damage the wires that way. But we will tap them in just a little bit further just to help hold it in. So I went to my local dollar store and I picked up this cute little guy, just a cute little wreath. It's nothing special. I had this left over. If you guys remember my advent calendar that I made not too long ago on the show, this was at the top of the house for a decoration. So we're just going to get rid of this string that it hangs by, and we're going to reform it because I just made it all squished up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of hot glue, and I'm going to glue this right to the top of our tree. And at that point in time, guys, the project is pretty much finished. If you want to, you can add a bigger base here to the bottom to give it a little more stability, but that is completely optional. Let me show you, once I get this glued on up here, let me show you what the project looks like when it's lit up. All right, you end up with something that looks like this. Isn't that cute? And all you need to do is remove your magnetic panel from the back, reach in with your finger, and turn it on. And there you go, guys. A cute little Christmas tree ornament. A table decoration. Easy to make, great for scrap wood. Just a cute looking project. And there you have it. A Christmas tree light up tabletop ornament. Guys, this is dead simple. Scrap wood, pieces of junk. You saw the piece of walnut that I made the base for this out of. Very simple procedure to make the base. Very simple to cut a piece of scrap to get the block that you need. I just did it over at the table saw. The pieces of pine, They're left over from a project that we made recently using pine. There were just some strips that were left over from our floating shelf that we made. So this isn't anything that I bought special. Those fairy lights, my wife already had them in her crafting collection. She donated them to the show, probably because she wants the Christmas tree. But the smaller things like the wreath was left over from my advent calendar that we made here on the show. I always keep some of these fairy lights and the little battery operated LEDs that you can get from the dollar store over in the tool chest. You never know when you want something like that for a quick little crafting project. And this forum here, being the show, is a great chance to showcase stuff like that. And you get a really adorable little ornament here to put in your home. This one can hang on the wall if you want. Just hang it from the peak of the tree inside the pine triangle. Guys, if you don't want to stain your tree, don't stain it. If you don't want to use pine, don't use pine. If you want to use something different, just use natural woods, then do it. If you want to put a base on this to stabilize it more, to help it stand up and not fall over, then do it. The whole point of this show is giving you the idea to make something like this and have a bit of fun. Not everything has to be hand-cut dovetails and fancy joinery and all that kind of jazz. Not everything has to be this fine woodworking project that people go, oh my gosh, you made that? That's incredible. It doesn't have to be that. Sometimes it's just fun to come out to the shop, throw a couple sticks of wood together, and come up with a cute little project like this that, you know what, is nice to see around the holidays. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. This project is so accessible, it's not even funny. This is accessible to all levels of woodworking. It is a fast project that comes together very, very quickly. And even though we're getting closer to Christmas, there is still plenty of time to whip one of these up. You can probably do this in a couple hours out in your shop and not even think about it. It's so easy to make and so quick to put together. Make 10 of them if you want and give them out to your family and friends. Guys, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We have a fantastic audience base here on the show, and I'm hoping that you're going to consider becoming a part of that. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I hope you've enjoyed today's project. I hope you're going to give this one a try for yourself, or at least maybe some variation of it. Tweak it a bit and make it your own. But more importantly, guys, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.